Now let's see what is photosynthesis. And you know that photosynthesis is a process by which green plants and some other bacteria like blue-green algae, they prepare food by themselves by using, solar energy. Am I right? And it is a process, during that, the inorganic molecules like carbon dioxide and water. So carbon dioxide and water, these are the inorganic molecules, and in the presence of sunlight and a pigment which is called chlorophyll, and this pigment is seen inside the chloroplast of the leaf mostly. So in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, the inorganic materials like carbon dioxide and water which combines and glucose is formed. And this process of synthesis of food from inorganic materials in the presence of light and chlorophyll, and we call that as photosynthesis. And during the process of photosynthesis, the main product is glucose and the byproducts are, water and oxygen. And, during photosynthesis, plants take carbon dioxide and release oxygen. That's why we call plants as purifiers of the environment. They take, carbon dioxide inside. Carbon dioxide is being fixed, and that is in the form of glucose. It's being converted into the useful material, that is the glucose. So the synthesis of food in the presence of light, and that's called photosynthesis. The raw materials for the process of photosynthesis, and they are carbon dioxide and water. Is it clear? Now let's see where the process of photosynthesis takes place. The site of photosynthesis, that's mainly the green leaves. In the green leaves, you know that they have the plastid, the green color plastid. We call that as, chloroplast. You have learned that already. Inside the chloroplast, the pigment, it's present. That is, chlorophylls. So the green pigments which is present in plants that helps in the process of photosynthesis, which is called chlorophyll, that we have seen previously. And that's why the leaves, mostly the leaves are able to do the process of photosynthesis. They have the pigment, the chlorophyll for the process of photosynthesis. See, this is a sectional view of a leaf. If you see the sectional view of a leaf, you can see that, two epidermis, upper epidermis, lower epidermis. And this, the other cells at the middle region, we call it as mesophyll. And towards the upper side, you can see mesophyll cells are, closely packed, they're elongated and closely packed. We call them as palisade mesophyll. Whereas towards the lower side, it is loosely packed. And such mesophyll cells are called, spongy mesophyll cells. Both are having chlorophylls. And spongy mesophyll cells are mostly towards the lower epidermis because you could see more number of stomata at the lower side. And stomata, it's meant for the gaseous exchange. See the structure of the stoma? And it's meant for the exchange of gases. These are the openings on the surface of the leaves, which is meant for the exchange of gases. And stomata, it's present both on upper and lower epidermis, but the number of stoma, it's more at the lower epidermis. See this is the opened stoma and this is the closed stoma. You know how it opens and closes? Here if you see these cells are called guard cells. Two guard cells. In dicots, you already studied that guard cells are, kidney shaped. And if you see the inner wall of the guard cell, it's thick, whereas the outer one is thin, And here you could see that during daytime, you could see the stoma opens. You know how? During daytime, the process of photosynthesis occurs. So the glucose molecule gets accumulated. And glucose, that it's a solute. So more solute concentration during daytime. As a result, what happens as you learned, in ninth class, the process of endosmosis takes place. The solvent molecules from other cells, subsidiary cells, enters into the guard cells, the kidney-shaped guard cells. What happens? Then the guard cells become turgid. and it helps in the opening of the stoma, because the inner thick wall pushes out the thin wall. The stoma opens. So during daytime, stoma opens. That's due to endosmosis. So the exchange of gases takes place, carbon dioxide and water. It takes place through this opening. During nighttime, the reverse thing happens. There is no photosynthesis, right? Because no light. So what happens? No solute or less solute. Exosmosis takes place. As a result of exosmosis, solvent molecules, it moves out. What you could see, it becomes shrunken, it becomes flaccid. And, the gut cells, it becomes shrunken, it closes the stoma. So you should know that stoma opens during daytime, whereas it closes during nighttime. And the opening and the closing of stoma, it depends on, the day and night condition, because it is through the process of endosmosis and exosmosis. Is it clear? Now let's see, the structure of the chloroplast. This also you have learned last year. And it's a double membrane structure. The inner contents, entire contents of the chloroplast, we call it as matrix. It's divided into two. Am I right? See, inside the matrix, you could see coin-like structures arranged one above the other. Each coin-like structure, we call them as thylakoid. So thylakoids are arranged one above the other. So, and it forms granum. See, this is a single granum. Plural form is grana. See, these all are grana. So you should know that each granum is made up of many thylakoids, which are arranged one above the other, like a pile of coin. See, chlorophyll pigments are present inside the granum, inside the thylakoids of the granum. Is it clear? And see, the rest of the fluidy matrix, we call that as stroma. So there are two, the matrix can be divided into two, the grana and the stroma. Is it clear? Chlorophylls are present inside the thylakoids of the grana. And in case of photosynthesis, there are two stages. One is called light-dependent reaction or light reaction. Another one is called light-independent reaction. See, light reaction, it takes place inside the granum of the chloroplast, whereas the dark reaction, it takes place in the stroma. I told you there are two stages in photosynthesis. One is dependent on light, another one is independent of light. And the first one, which is dependent on the presence of light, we call it as light reaction. The second one, which is independent of light, we call that as dark reaction. Let's see what happens during light and dark reaction. During light reaction, what happens? The light energy from sun, which is being trapped by chlorophyll molecules. See, this is a representation of the granum. And see, I told you the thylakoids of the granum has chlorophyll. So during light reaction, the sunlight, the light energy from the sun, which will be trapped by the chlorophyll molecules. And there the light energy will be converted into the chemical form of energy, that is ATP and NADPH. So the light energy will be converted into chemical energy. That's a main process of, light reaction. And not only that, in the presence of light, the water molecule which gets splitted. We call that process as photolysis. Photo means light, lysis means splitting. So photolysis of water, splitting of water in the presence of sunlight. And what happens? Hydrogen and oxygen, they are produced. And in case of photosynthesis, oxygen is a byproduct. It is being produced, it is being released, and that's through the process of photolysis of water. So these two are the main events of, the light reaction. First one, it's absorption of sunlight. Second one, conversion of light energy to chemical energy. That means ATP and NADPH. And also the splitting of water, photolysis of water into hydrogen and oxygen by light energy. Is it clear? During second phase, that means in dark reaction, you know what happened? Actual fixation of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is being reduced to carbohydrate. Glucose molecules is being produced during the second phase, that is not depending on light, the presence of light. We call that as dark reaction. It is proposed by, two scientists, Melvin and Calvin. We call that as Calvin cycle. And I told you, light reaction, it takes place inside the granum, whereas a dark reaction takes place in the stroma. In dark reaction, what happens? The ATP and NADPH, which is produced by light reaction, is being utilized to produce glucose. Carbon dioxide is being fixed and being converted into glucose by using the energy molecules of ATP and NADPH2. Is it clear? There are two processes, in case of photosynthesis. One is depending on light, another one is not dependent on light. So they are light reaction, dark reaction. And it's very important question, the events of photosynthesis. Absorption of sunlight by chlorophyll, conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules, and then reduction of carbon dioxide by hydrogen to form carbohydrate like glucose. Is it clear? Light reaction, the first two step occurs during light reaction, that takes place in the granum, because chlorophyll molecules are present inside the thylakoids of the granum, whereas a dark reaction takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. Is it clear? Let's see the differences between light reaction and the dark reaction. I told you light reaction is dependent on light, whereas dark reaction is independent on light. And here this is a representation of the granum where light reaction takes place, and whereas the dark reaction, it takes place in the stroma of the chloroplast. And I already told you during light reaction, photolysis takes place. That means splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen, and that takes place in the presence of light. So photolysis takes place only in light reaction, not in dark reaction. The end products of light reaction, as we have discussed, the chemical form of energy ATP and NADPH2. And whereas the end product of dark reaction, which is glucose, the carbon dioxide, is being fixed, is being reduced in the form of glucose. And the light reaction is a photochemical reaction which takes place in the presence of light, whereas the dark reaction, it's a biochemical reaction. Hope it is clear for you. Thank you.